and yet nobody's buying. Same was said for tomatoes in some markets, and same was said for even some poultry products. So tonight I'm going to do two things. I'm going to speak to the government statistician to explain how he calculates inflation and what possibly could be going on, because all the major indicators show that inflation is coming down, and we agree with that. But how come when it comes to food, we are not seeing a commensurate reduction in some food prices? Before that, a few days ago, I spoke to the Minister for Food and Agriculture, who is also MP for Esunafo South. This is Agric Opoku. And I asked him, how come you have gluts of many products, yet prices were not coming down? In fact, it was an interview which covered a lot of things. But the first question I asked him had to do with the seeming glut and the price stickiness upwards. So I'm bringing you some highlights of that before we speak to the government statistician as well. So here's Agric Opoku talking to me about food prices.
In the past 3 weeks, we've read 4 stories about supposed gluts.
Yes.
Tomato in Asante Akim Central, maize in a couple of places, rice in Odankwanta in Eastern, and in August, eggs in some parts of the country.
And several other places.
Very good. Now, what is concerning for us is twofold.
Yeah.
Why are there these isolated gluts? Is it that there's overproduction, or there's a question of lack of ability to buy, or transportation and lack of storage? What, in your view, is accounting for these reported gluts of these products?
Thank you very much, Bernard, and let me greet your cherished viewers. In fact, it is not isolated. It is nationwide. In all the production centers, that is what we are experiencing. As I speak with you, I'm returning from Bebiani to Kumasi, and it's the same situation. The rice farmers are complaining. They are produced in quantities beyond the market there, and they are not getting buy-in. In Esunafo South, in my own constituency, the youth that participated in the Feed Ghana program came to me that they are harvesting the rice in quantities, and they are looking for market. So it is not the case that we are recording isolated, situations or incidents. But what is happening now, it is a nationwide bumper harvest that Ghana is experiencing. Now, what has accounted for that? Simple. We launched what we call the Feed Ghana program. The first leg of the Feed Ghana program is a campaign for mass participation in the program. We campaign that individual households must have backyard gardens. We campaign that secondary schools must have school farms. And then from the beginning of the campaign up to today, we have on record 129 secondary schools participating. We also campaign for churches and faith-based organizations to also participate in the program. We have records of churches participating, some issuing instructions to their branches to take advantage of the fertile soil of our land to also produce something. We have also advocated that state agencies must also engage in the program. They are all participating. And you must understand that the agricultural space is dominated, it's entirely private sector led. And so when government creates that congenial atmosphere for the private sector to take advantage of, certainly you are likely to see some of these things. And let me agree that this year, the weather has also been very, very favorable. And so the result of all these things should be bumper harvest, which we anticipated at the beginning of the program. And that was why we made allocations to the National Buffer Stock to get themselves ready to procure the excess, mop up the excess produce from the market, store them, and release against emergencies. Now, your question relates to the price, I think you asked
Yeah,
about the price.
I'm not even gotten to the price yet. First, I wanted for you to establish that there was actually a nationwide glut, because I have just read 4 stories. Now you are saying
that one is not contestable. It is something that nobody can contest.
No.
Because, Bernard, you know we have 2 farming seasons. In the southern sector, they start their farming season from March, and then they harvest around this period. The northern sector, they start their season from May, June, and then harvest November, December. What we are seeing now is just the harvest from the southern sector. Very soon, the northern sector harvest will kick in, and then it is going to be serious.
Well,
the figures we have indicate that the number of people participating in agriculture in this country has increased significantly. We have a lot of our youth participating, and even journalists participating, footballers, everybody. Agriculture is now the cynosure of our country. Everybody is talking about, and everybody is participating. So certainly, we are going to have some of these things happening. That one nobody can dispute.
Of course, I'm sure later on you will give us the figures so we will see how big the glut is. The second question, though, is if there's such a glut, why are food prices still so expensive? I think today we saw a story in the High Street Journal which says the basic cost of these food items is not coming down. So if there's so much overproduction, why are the prices still so high?
Now, let me explain this. The Ghana Statistical Service, in January 2023, indicated that food inflation, that's the rate at which food prices were going up at that time, was 61%. In September 2024, it dropped to 22.1%. In January 2025, it rose to 23.8%. In September 2025, it has dropped to 14.8%. Bernard, what other things are you looking at to agree to the fact that yes, food prices are coming down? But let me take this out so that people will understand me better. Now, when you go to the production point, the farmers are complaining that they were selling a truck of yam at 7,000 Ghana cedis. Now, when they started harvest, it reduced to 4,000 and it's now hovering around 2,000, 3,000 at the production point, the farm gate. Now, when it comes to the centers, the urban areas, where people don't produce, they only consume, the figures we are receiving is that the prices are coming down significantly. But there is one problem. Some of our people in the cities don't go to the Ghanaian market like Abobroshi and others. They shop from the malls. When you go to the mall, some of the food items you see there are imported. And the prices cannot be compared to the local food now because local sources are now cheaper than the imported sources. Then again, regardless of the fact that we have some middlemen, some people operating as middlemen between the farmers and the urban areas, engaging in profiteering, trying to enjoy abnormal profits, buying cheaply from the farmers, and selling at cutthroat prices to the consumers, the prices are far, far, far better. We are asking Ghanaians that we have decided to produce to feed Ghanaian people. Ghanaian people must also reciprocate our gesture by eating Ghana.
Okay, Minister, let's pause on the second point you made. If there's so much food, a lot of my listeners go to market to buy food. Me, as I sit here, I don't buy from mall. We go to Medina market to buy. We would have seen it. So if you say one of the reasons why the prices may be high is the choice of where to buy, I think most Ghanaians still go to markets to buy food. And if there's a glut, we will actually see it in the market.
If you go to the market to buy tomato, you appreciate that the price has come down. Because in terms of quantities, you see it. Some people came to my office and they were testifying to the fact that they went to the market and the quantity of tomato that they bought at that price, they've never seen it before. Even in onion, people were saying it. plantain everywhere. I mean, Kumasi, I'm getting to Kumasi.
What about maize? What about maize and
Yes,
rice?
the price of maize has fallen so significantly to the extent that when it was 1,400 last year, now we are selling at 500, 400. In some markets, in Techiman, Agric area, the market people called. The farmers were saying that they are now selling below 400. And then we said, no, that shouldn't be. Then we should work to bring the price down. I have some colleagues, members of parliament, who are into the maize business. They procured the maize last year. They were keeping them thinking that they were going to get some profit, higher prices. Unfortunately, the price has fallen so low that the MP was in my office asking that we buy a bag of maize at 500. We said no. He said at the time he was purchasing, it was 900 per bag. But now, because he's not getting the market and the price is collapsing, if we can even offer him 500, it will be okay. That is last year's produce.
Okay, so how
and
come?
We are now harvesting that of this year.
So, Minister, correct.
Mm-hmm.
How come poultry farmers still complain about the cost of feed? Is it that we are producing the maize that we eat and not the ones that the poultry farmers use? Because if maize is in such a glut, it should affect because maize is the bulk component of the poultry feed.
You see, we are now harvesting. And then the poultry farmers, what they use to prepare the feed, they use the dried properly, the thoroughly dried one. So they are still using the last year's produce, which they procured at that price. Now looking at what we have now, and the price at which the maize is being sold, certainly when they produce, next year, it will bring the feed down. And we are also coming out with a lot of strategies. We are not looking at maize alone as the only ingredient that can affect the price of, poultry feed. There are other things that we are looking at. And so when we are done with all the strategies we are putting in place, certainly cost of feed will come down. I engaged with one of the poultry feed producers. The company is located here in Kumasi. And the man said, looking at the price at which they are buying the maize and the facilities they have to dry and other things, they are going to reduce the price of the feed significantly. And we have even engaged them to produce for us and then emboss on them and Nkokon Kitinkiti feed so that we can distribute to people who are participating in the Nkokon Kitinkiti project. So, Bernard, let us first understand that we have not seen this before. It's a blessing to this nation.
Well, sometimes some things emerge. We must sustain it before we can start.
This year,
Minister,
yourself, you participated in the campaign.
We
look at the Agric something that you did.
Yeah, the Agric fair, not the Agric something
that you generated. The advocacy that you have done on your studio.
Yes.
So this interest must result in higher production.
Fair enough, Minister. If there's so much production, how come farmers are not able to store? Why is there a storage problem? Because people are saying nobody's buying. In the chain, you produce, you put in silos, you process.
I agree with you.
How come they need it to be bought immediately? Because this is basic agriculture, right?
Most of our farmers, they don't have storage facilities. Don't forget that when you look at the farmer population in Ghana, more than 80% is peasant farmers. They produce basically to feed their homes and sell the little excess to enable them buy the few things that they want to buy. Subsistence farming. These people do not have the capacity to provide the kind of silos that will be sufficient to accommodate the production that they are witnessing. But at least in the villages, they have small means of, storing food. What we are saying that we are developing the entire chain. We are developing the entire value chain from production until it gets to the table for consumption. So when they have the excess and people are not buying, buffer stock must step in there to buy that excess and then store them against emergencies. Storage is a problem because individuals do not have. But those who are into commercial farming, they have the storage facilities. Then let me indicate to you, one of the farmers came to my office and said he wants to produce 30,000 tons of yellow maize. And he wanted assurance from me whether government of Ghana can buy that. I told him, yes, we are ready. If the quantity is available today, he should let us know.
All right.
Yesterday, he called me and said the quantity is available. And I've provided his number and details to the buffer store for them to move in there immediately to procure those quantities.
Minister.
So these are some of the things that we should anticipate.
Fair enough.
We haven't developed our agriculture to its fullest. We are still developing, and we have to do this together. But it's an indication that don't look at it as a challenge alone. It is also an opportunity for investment.
Very good.
If we don't have solid facilities, can Bernard and others advocate for interested business guys, prospective business guys to also participate in that area, put up solid facilities like a colleague of mine is doing in the Bono region? We can do that.
All right, Minister, two points, and thank you so much for your time. Last year, we had a dry spell, 2024, which gripped at least 8 of our 16 regions. So it means that our harvested maize for last year was much lower than anticipated. So we need to put this year's production in context compared to last year, because we had a dry spell last year and you had good weather this year and your government programs have increased production. We must look at the bump in production from the context of the dry spell last year, because last year was not a normal year. That's point number one. Number two, because of the dry spell, there was a lot of imports. In fact, one report says Ghana's grain imports are projected to rise to 67% in 2025-2026 to ostensibly make up for the shortage of 2024.
That is excellent.
Good. So if you are importing much more maize in a time where people are producing more, you know that somehow the imports are able to be cheaper than the local producers for some reason. So maybe one of the reasons why the farmers are struggling is that maybe for rice, for example, the imports are much cheaper, and therefore people cannot patronize the local one, and this could translate to others as well. So the question of the imports should also be seriously looked at.
I agree with you that last year, because of the dry spell, there were a lot of import of rice and maize into the country. But don't forget that last year, the exchange rate was higher. So regardless of the fact that they were waiving taxes on those imports to make up for the shortfall, prices of those items are still high. They are higher compared to what we are harvesting now. Now, in the case of the rice and other things that you talk about, we distributed rice seed to our farmers across the country free of charge. It was a deliberate intervention to increase rice production. In fact, in all the communities I have visited, what they tell me is that the type of rice we gave them has been the best, and they want us to give them more. Now, and then also because of the campaign, I've told you earlier on that many young people, men and women, boys and girls, have participated in the space, and they are producing in those quantities. Today, I can confirm to you that the price of local rice is cheaper than the imported one in our market. But then, Ghanaians must understand this. We cannot continue to be moochers, trying to get everything free, borrowing and not paying. No. We must understand that nobody will come and face this country for us. We must do everything on our own. If you go to the market and you see local rice and then imported rice, and you choose to buy the imported rice, you are creating jobs in the country where the rice came from at the expense of your own people. If the jobs have been created here, your children, my children, grandchildren, neighbors, siblings, whoever will be employed, and we'll build the economy together. So it is part of the education that we are working on. But now, I also have instances where some of these importers have come to me, that they have the maize, they imported them, nobody is buying. In fact, they are losing their investment. Is it the case that we can do something about it? I told them, we are not in to buy imported rice. And so they should hold on. Right. You know, immediately we assume office, there was a case that happened. I've never shared with the media. Once you have pushed me, I will share with you. Ghana, as part of the measures to make up for the shortfalls caused by the dry spell, they had arranged with ECOWAS to borrow additional rice and maize. And so ECOWAS came to me that they wanted to lift the grains from Burkina Faso to us. But because of the political turbulence in that area, they are not allowed to even step there and then let alone moving rice from that country. And so they wanted to discuss with me how we can make out for the shortfall. I asked them to give me 2-3 weeks to do some consultations. I spoke to some of the churches, and one church invited me to their farms. And they told me that, look, these are quantities of rice that we are storing against emergencies. They had more than 40,000 bags in one area. And then they told me that this area, they have this quantity, that area, they have that quantity. So I shouldn't be afraid. There is no cause for alarm. I came back, told the ECOWAS people that Ghana is not interested again. We don't need it. They should keep their 200,000 or whatever. We don't need it. And then I stopped them. Now, these churches have their storage facilities. Some of them, they have their storage facilities, and they are storing against emergencies. Some churches are buying their own produce. It will shock you to note that one particular church wrote letters to all their branches, directing them as to what they should produce for us to, overcome the challenge that we are having. I sent my team down there, and the report before me indicates that, in fact, we have a lot of grains on the ground. So the imports that came, at some point we truncated it. We said we are not going to issue a permit for people to import those things again. So yes, they came, but they're also struggling to get the market. Once we have ours, and ours is cheaper, we expect the rational Ghanaian consumers to tilt to that of Ghana for a lot of advantages, so that together we can solve the problem.
So I agree that these interventions are important, but you know that because importers have so much money, structurally the best way to fight this is to invest in local production so that the producers can produce at a lower cost to be competitive when compared to the importers. So for example, I heard you announce, I think a few months ago, that some Qataris were investing $1.5 billion in agriculture by November. Are they investing it in production? If it is, in what kind of food? And is it meant for the local market to consume or to export to Qatar? Because these are the things that we need to get clear. If the local producers can be competitive, then they must have enough finance to produce, to be competitive compared to the importers. But it looks like a lot of the money coming in, when the money comes in and they are investing because they want us to export these products to their own markets. So food prices in Ghana still remain high. So I just want you to use the Qatar example to convince us that you are attracting the right type of money into Agric, and our local producers can be competitive so that no matter who imports, local production will still be more affordable.
Yes. I will not use only the Qatar case. I'm going to add another one. We have the Italian company called BF International. They are now in Bato. They are doing 10,000 hectares. They are producing rice, they are producing maize, they are doing tomatoes and soya. When I went to Italy, I mentioned you there. I single you out for the special role you are playing in the agricultural space, for the time you took to mobilize Ghanaians, to create awareness, stimulate interest in agricultural production. It is a commendable effort that we say everywhere. We mention everywhere.
So you went to Italy without me and you mentioned me there. And you took me to Italy. Just you mentioned me there. So I was here and you were there. And you were mentioning me there. And you took me there to show my face.
Bernard, I didn't take you there, but I mentioned you there. It means that you are working for the people. Because even after you are deaf, your legacy will linger on.
Ayo.
And that is most important.
No, you're a big man. So I'll see you in November again to do part 2 of the Agri Fair. We will push Agric by all means. Thank you.
So that was Eric Opoku with me, hailing my achievements in Ghana to people in Italy by keeping me here in Ghana. But on a more serious note, we did that interview exactly a week ago today, which is the 1st of October. That was the same day that Dr. Alassane Idrisu also announce the latest consumer price index figures. He's joined us to also help us think through how he sees the inflation trend, why food prices in some markets seem to be sticky upwards, and what we need to do so people can feel the real effect of lower inflation. Stay with us.